Welcome back, guys. In this course, we're going to learn how to build Makefiles. A common problem you will face when working on any project is how to build and work with your project. By using Makefiles, you can forever change how you build your projects. Stop wasting your time running your commands to build your projects manually. It's not efficient. Today, you might remember all the commands that you need to build your projects, but few months down the road, you will forget lots of them. For this course, we will be using Docker. If you're not using Docker, you can still follow along. The important part is you know how to create Makefiles for your Laravel projects. If you're completely new to Docker, I highly recommend you watch my other videos relating to building Docker for Laravel. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with my latest training videos. The end result of this course is to build a Makefile template that you guys can use as a basis and a reference point for all your future Laravel projects. I'm just gonna give you guys a quick demo. I am inside one of my Laravel projects. Let's go ahead and write make. And here, you can see all my make commands. I have a make help section, make ps, fresh, start, stop, restart, and the list goes on. Let's go ahead and take a look at make fresh. So what make fresh does, it destroys all our Docker instances and it recreates all our containers. Now, without a Makefile, to do this, to stop your container, you need to write docker compose down. That's one command. You also need to delete your containers, and depending on how many containers you have implemented, you need to write docker rm, and you need to remove each individual container. You also need to delete your volume, and once that's done, you need to build your instance and you need to recreate it. So there's a lot of commands that you can run manually, or here I can just write make fresh. Now that's done running, you can see here we executed a lot of commands, Docker commands. We were deleting our images here. We rebuilt our containers and we started them here. Just using this command will save you a lot of time instead of manually calling them. Now let's go ahead and write make and see what other commands we have. Let's take a look at this command, the cache clear and the cache. If your Laravel projects involve caching, there's probably at least 4 or 5 different types of caches that you can cache in Laravel. You can sit down and call each cache command manually, or you could just use the Makefile here. So you guys can see that the Makefile will make your life much easier, and it will also help other people to run your project. Before you attempt to install Make, let's go ahead and make sure that we don't already have it installed on our server. I am using WSL for Docker on Windows. I highly recommend that you guys use WSL. If you're not using WSL, I highly recommend you watch my last video on this. To check if Make is installed, go ahead and write make. And here I'm getting this error, command make not found. And here it gives you the instructions on how to install it. Let's go ahead and copy this. So sudo apt install make. Once that's done, go ahead and run make. And you should be able to see this error here. No target specified and no Makefile found. Alright guys, so for this course, we're going to use one of my GitHub projects that we used in our last tutorial. Let's go ahead and go to Google. And here you want to search GitHub Emad Zamut. And go ahead and click on the first link. You should be inside my GitHub account. Go to repositories and select the Laravel 9 complete course blog implementation. Copy the URL here. If you're using Windows, you want to go ahead and open your WSL2 terminal. In here, we're going to create a folder for our project. Let's start off by doing ls-la, and I'm going to create my project inside my workspace folder. In here, let's go ahead and create a new directory. I'm going to call it Laravel blog. Let's go ahead and go inside our new directory, and you want to write git init, then you want to do git pull and paste the URL here. Once that's done, go ahead and open VS Code. So to do that in the terminal, you write code and a dot. And in here, you should see all our project files. Let's go ahead and open a new terminal in VS Code. And let's make sure that we are inside our WSL2 instance. And you can see we are inside our Linux distribution. In order for us to start using Make, we will need to create a new Makefile inside our main project directory. So in here, I'm going to create a new file. Let's call it Makefile. Now inside our Makefile, each command that you want to make, it's pretty much called a target. Let's go ahead and create a few lines here and let's create a new target. So we're going to create a command. Let's call it help. And in here, let's go ahead and add an echo and let's just say help. Now let's go ahead under it and create another target. Call it temp just for now. And let's go ahead and echo temp. Now let's go ahead and go back to our terminal and let's run make. Now if you take a look here, we ran our help command. Makefiles by default will always run your first target if you don't specify any. So here we ran make. If you say make help, for example, or make temp, it will run the specific command in here. If you don't mention a command, it will run your first target. A very common error that you guys will encounter when using Makefiles is if you use spaces instead of indentation. In here, we indented this line by a tab. Let's just see what happens when you use spaces instead. Now I'm gonna run make, and you should see this error that says missing separator. So it's very important that you indent your lines by tabs, not spaces. Also, let's go ahead and run make again. We can see the command that we ran. So this one is running echo help. If you don't want to display the commands that are running inside your target, in here, you just add an @ sign. Now let's try to run make. And you can see we no longer see the command that was executed. Now let's go ahead and erase what we have in here. And I want to just explain one thing quickly. By default, when you have a Makefile, and let's just say you write make help, you will not see your commands in here. It will execute the first target. So we need to generate our commands. When someone types make, we want to see what commands are available. To do that, we're going to use AWK. The AWK command is a Linux tool and programming language that allows users to process and manipulate data and produce formatted reports. For our Makefiles, we will use it to read our file and echo some output text based on a specific pattern inside our Makefile. Let's go ahead and go back to our browser, and you want to go to Google. In here, search for Emad Zamout, Zaamout, GitHub. This is my GitHub account. And if you go to repositories, you want to search for this repository, Makefile auto-generate help. I have also added it inside our description. In here, you will see this Makefile, and this is a starter Makefile that I added. Let's go ahead and copy this help section in here. And let's paste it inside our code. So here you can see I am using the AWK Linux command, and we're searching based on this pattern. Here you have your target, colon, and 2 number signs, and then you will add your description text. So if we write make now, you will see this output in here. This here, print help, is coming right from the text description here. Also, another problem that you will encounter when using Makefiles is when you have a target name that's similar to a file name in here. For example, you don't have to do this. I'm just demonstrating a point. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it help. So here we have a file in our project called help. Inside our Makefile, we have a command called help. Let's go ahead and write make help. Let's go ahead and also write make. You will see this output. Help is up to date. So the whole purpose of Makefiles is to build files. Your targets are pretty much going to be physical files on your project. If you want make not to interpret your command target as a file name, on the top you will write .phony colon, and you want to specify your make targets in here. So I'm going to say help. So what this does is say to Makefiles, this target is not a physical file. It will just execute this command. Let's try it out. Let's write make help, and now you can see it works. Let's try running make, and you can see that it still works. Now just to demonstrate again, you don't have to do this. I'm going to write another command. I'm going to call it temp. I'm going to add a comment here and say temp. In here, I'm going to echo temp. And I'm going to rename this help file to temp. And let's run make temp. And we see that error again. So to fix that, on the top, we're going to also add temp. Let's write make temp again. And you can see that it works. So the point is, in here, you want to add all your targets. It's good practice to prevent it from checking physical files. Now, I'm going to add few more helper commands for our Makefile. When you're using Docker, lots of time you want to write docker compose ps to see the status of your containers. So let's make a command for that. Let's write ps, and let's go ahead and execute docker compose ps. In here, let's add a description text, and let's say show containers. Let's give it a try. In here, I'm going to write make. And let's write make ps, and you should see that we're executing this command here. It's up to you if you guys want to remove this @ sign and display these commands. I just find that sometimes it clutters the screen. Now, before we dive further, let's go ahead and go to our docker compose file, and let's just see what containers we have in here. So we have a PHP container, we have a database container, and we have a node container. In here, we have given each container a name. This one, node. This one is called database. This one is called PHP. And we also have a volume in here that's called db-vol. So let's go to our Makefile and let's create variables for our container names. So I'm going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it container underscore PHP. And let's set this equal to our PHP container name. Let's do the same thing for node. And let's do the same thing for our database. Now for our volume, and the volume is for our database. So let's create a new variable, call it volume underscore database. Let's set this equal to. You want to make sure that you set it equal to your folder name. So mine is called Laravel -blog underscore db -vol. So this part here is coming from the volume name here, and all the way this part here, the Laravel-blog, this is your project folder name. So mine is called Laravel-blog underscore to separate the project folder name and your volume name here. And actually, I'm just going to delete that temp file that I made. Now let's go ahead and scroll down. I'm going to create another command to build our containers. So it's going to be called build. Let's add a description here, and let's just say we want to build all containers. In here, let's run docker build no cache and add a dot here. So this will build all your containers. Let's go ahead and give this a try. I'm going to write make build, and you can see that it works. Now let's go ahead and add two more quick commands. One is going to be called start, and this will be used to start all our containers. So I'm going to say here, start all containers, and we're going to run docker compose up force recreate. You don't need the force recreate flag, but I find it useful. And I'm going to add D for detached mode. Let's add stop. Let's add a comment here and say stop all containers. And we're just going to run docker compose down. Now let's go ahead and give this a quick try. I'm going to write make start. And it looks like it worked. Let's just write make PS and make sure all our containers are running. You can see our PHP container is running on port 8000. Let's give this a quick try in our browser. So let's go to 127.0.0.1 at port 8000, and you should be able to see your web page load in here. We created this in our previous tutorial. If you guys are curious, you can log in here. The username is support@ahtcloud.com. The password is password. And here you can create, edit, and delete blogs. And you can do the same thing for users. Let's go ahead and go back to our code editor. Now let's go ahead and create more commands. I'm going to create one to restart our containers. So let's give it a comment, restart all containers. And for this one, I'm just going to call my other two targets, the stop and the start. In Makefiles, if you want to call other targets, you have to do it on the same line where you create your target, right after the colon. You can't do it on the other lines. Here, I'm going to call stop first, then I'm going to call start. Now let's go ahead and create another command. I'm going to call it destroy. And what this will do is it will delete all our containers and volumes. But before we do that, I'm going to call my stop command first. And let's add a comment in here and let's just say destroy all containers. And to do that, it's easy. To delete Docker images, we're going to write docker rm-vf, and you want to add your container name. So we created those variables, if you guys remember. I'm going to add my PHP. Let's copy this line and paste it in 2 times. And let's change the reference. So one's going to be for the PHP, one for our database, one for our node. And to delete our volumes, we're going to run docker volume rm to remove it, and the volume name here. So let's reference our variable. Now let's just give this a quick try. I'm going to write make destroy. Now you can see here our command works, except for our containers here. We're getting all these errors. They're not found. So the reason why none of these containers are deleted is because it's already deleted inside our stop command. Let's actually change the stop from down to stop. What down does, it deletes all your images and networks. But the stop command will only stop your containers. This way, we will leave the part where we delete them to our destroy command. Now, instead of doing all these manually, you could just run docker compose down. And I'm just going to add this here as well, the @ sign. Let's give this a try. I'm going to write make destroy. And now you see this error, no such volume exists. The reason why this volume doesn't exist is because we just ran this command previously, but it's a good idea to fix this by adding an if statement to prevent deleting the volume if it doesn't exist. In here, we're going to write if, and this is bash syntax. So I want to say if. We want to check if our container exists. So we're going to write $, and let's add this in brackets, shell docker volume ls, and we want to filter by name, and that's going to be our volume database. And we want to make sure that Docker only returns the name. We don't want all the other fields. So if this value exists, then we want to run this command in here. Now let's go ahead and close our if statement. If you guys see here, I have these backslashes. Let me just remove them and show you what will happen without them. So I'm gonna write make destroy. All right, now it looks like we're getting this error, unexpected in the file on line 28. And right here, we just needed to add a semicolon. Let's write make destroy again, and we still get that same error. So in here, you need to add a backslash, and here you need to add another backslash. If you try this, it will work. The reason why you need all these backslashes is that if you have a command that takes more than one line, you need to add the backslash to the next line, except for the last line. Let's write make. So far, we have all these commands, one to build, start, stop, restart, and destroy our containers. I'm going to write another one. Let's do it right under start. In here, I'm going to call it fresh. So what this will do is we want to stop our containers. We want to destroy our containers. We want to build our containers. And then we want to start our containers. The fresh command is going to give us a fresh start. We're destroying everything and starting from scratch. Let's add a comment in here and say destroy and recreate all containers. Let's give this command a try. Make fresh. All right, it looks like it's working. Let's write make PS, and you should see all our containers have a status of running. Now let's scroll down and let's create a few more commands. We want to write a command to help us cache all our Laravel project. Let's call it cache, and let's give it a comment, cache project. Now, since we're using Docker, we have to run, for example, PHP artisan cache inside our PHP container. So we're going to write Docker, execute. We're going to reference our container PHP, and we want to write PHP artisan cache. Let's go ahead and copy paste this few times. Do view cache, config cache, event cache. By the way, the project is not really using event, but the reason why I'm adding all these caches is just to provide you guys a reference point for this file. And before we try this out, let's add another command. Let's call it cache clear, and this will clear our cache. And let's just go ahead and copy all this. Let's paste it in here. The first one is going to be cache clear. The second one, view clear, config clear, event clear, route clear. Let's try this out. So I'm going to write make cache. Actually, looks like I made a typo. We don't need this first line right here. Let's remove it. Let's try this out. Make cache, and you can see the command is working. Let's run make cache clear. Again, guys, I'm emphasizing the point is not the caches here. It is how to write commands. So you want to go ahead and enter all your values in here that you're using. Now let's create another command. I think this one is going to be helpful. So lots of times you want to write PHP artisan migrate, and another one for migrate fresh. So let's create a new command. Let's call it migrate. And let's add a comment, run migration files. And here we want to execute in Docker inside our PHP container, PHP artisan migrate. Let's copy paste this again. And let's do another one for fresh. So I'm going to say clear database and run all migrations. And in here we want to run PHP artisan migrate fresh. Now for my project, to build the front end assets, you need to run npm run dev and npm run prod, one of those. So I'm going to create commands for this. So I'm going to say npm -dev. And this one, let's give it a comment, compile front assets for dev. And we want to write docker execute inside our node container, npm run dev. Let's copy paste this and do the same thing for prod. So instead of calling it npm dev, I'm going to call it npm-prod. In here, we're going to write npm run prod. Actually, let's make it production. And let's just try one of those out. I'm going to write here, make npm dev. And looks like here I'm having some errors. Well, let's just scroll to the top. And looks like here I forgot to adjust the name here. So the migrate, the second command, let's add -fresh. So it's going to be one migrate and one migrate -fresh. And here I'm getting this error because I did not run npm install. It's a good idea to add also a command for that, might as well. So let's do npm -install. Let's give it a comment, install front end assets. And here we're going to write docker execute inside our node container, npm install. Let's try this out. So I'm going to write make npm -install. And it looks like it worked. Let's try to run make npm -dev. And you can see now it's working. All right, guys, just a few more commands. When you're using Docker, a lot of times you want to look up your Docker logs. Now, to do that, you can do, for example, Docker logs and your container name. So let's go ahead and do that. In here, I'm going to write logs, and this one is going to print all Docker logs. And it's pretty simple. We're going to write docker compose logs-if. Let's do another one, logs for our PHP container. And I'm going to say print all PHP container logs. And we're going to run here docker logs, and we're going to reference our PHP container. Let's copy paste this 2 times, one for node and one for our database. So this one, logs-node. And we want to reference our node variable. In here, let's reference our database variable, and let's change the name to database. All right, let's give this a try. I'm going to write make logs-database, and you can see our database logs in here. Now, the last set of commands that I want to show you guys that might be useful is a lot of times you want to SSH into your Docker containers. It would be nice to have make commands for those. So let's create a command. Let's call it ssh-php. And for this one, let's add a comment and say ssh inside PHP container, and let's write docker execute -it and our container PHP name sh. Let's give this a try. Let's do make ssh php, and you can see we are inside our PHP container. You guys gotta admit, man, this is much better than running these commands manually. Let's copy paste this a few times. 1, 2, 1 for node. Here, let's change this to node. Let's update this to node. And 1 for our database. Let's update this to database. And let's change the variable to database. And that should be pretty much it. I hope you guys found this tutorial useful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you found this tutorial useful, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys hit that like button. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post it on a comment down below. And we'll see you guys on the next video.